Welcome to Library-ish, the podcast from Butte County Library where the books are beloved, opinions are strong, and adaptations are complicated. I'm Traci.
And I'm January. And today we're talking about the movies that made us say, wow, they actually did the book justice. And the ones that made us scream into a pillow.
Yep. They're out there, that's for sure. So this episode is called The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, book to film adaptations that delighted us and the ones that hurt our feelings. Because wow, some of them really did.
Oh, they did. I will not survive some of them. Oh my gosh.
Well, maybe.
Yeah. We're sharing our personal favorites, our biggest disappointments, and a few adaptations that made us question whether the screenwriters actually read the book.
Mm-hmm.
You know, some of them do.
Well, some of them do. Some of them actually write the screenplays too. But here's the deal. Whether you're a devoted read it before you watch it purist, or just here to hear us roast the one very bad adaptation, you know the one. We've got stories, hot takes, and a whole lot of big feelings. Let's go. Here we are.
Yes.
Yes.
Book to movie adaptations.
I mean, sometimes they go so right and sometimes they just go so wrong.
Oh my gosh. You know, I absolutely love it. One of my favorite hobbies with my girls is we'll read a book and then we'll go find the movie and we'll watch the movie. And then we'll either be like, or we'll be like, yay! And it really all depends.
Yeah, I mean, that's for sure. And I will say this, these are all just our opinions. This is not any criteria or anything. This is how we feel. We're going to talk about the good adaptations, the bad adaptations, and then the ugly adaptations. Now that's going to have some special criteria. It may be different for her than it is for me. And we'll kind of go over that when we discuss it.
We have different tastes, and I'm going to say the thing. Opinions are like armpits. We've all got two, and they usually tend to stink.
Ta-da!
So, you know, and like I said, it's a different saying usually, but I've got little kids and we kind of G-rate things. And, you know, a lot of the stuff that I read to relax more than anything else. Yeah. And I did do the school thing and I did read the stuff that I wrote 6-page papers on and a few of the classics and all that stuff. And I do have appreciation for
sure
great literature.
Oh, of course.
But when I read, I aim to relax. I aim to escape. I aim to just chill. And, you know, it's my opinion.
Yeah, there you go. All right, let's get started. Let's start with the good.
Yay! So I want to start with Demon Slayer.
Okay.
Demon Slayer is a manga. And it's we have it in all of our branches, and it's Japanese manga. What you do is you check out, and there's all these little installments. I think Demon Slayer has about 20 or so installments, and you read it from back to front, and it's a little graphic novel, you know, that it's delightful fun, and reading it is very much like eating candy for me. Where I could just sit there for hours just completely consuming this manga, and it's so much fun. And I read the whole thing. I hate the whole thing. And then
I can't believe I ate the whole thing.
And then and my daughter read it too, and we sit together and we put on this show because there's an anime. They took the manga and they turned it into an anime.
Oh yeah.
And it's almost exactly verbatim, almost. There are some things that were changed. Like there's this one scene, Inosuke, who's my favorite. He's the one that wears the pig mask.
You were last Halloween.
I was him last Halloween with the piggy head, and they're trying to kill this bad guy that uses her belt to get her victims and everything. And Inosuke is digging down, and he finds himself in the cellar where she's got these folds of her belt, and she has all these victims in there. Now this is in the book. It's not in the anime. And so we got to this part where he pops up in the cellar, and I'm there, my daughter and I, because it was one of our favorite parts. And he's like, it's like a big worm. How do you kill a worm? You pee on it. No, that's not a good idea. But it was in the manga, and we both laughed at it. And we're both like, did you see that? That was so cute and funny. But they left it out of the anime.
Aww.
And so we got there, we're like, aw, my part. I wanted to see him say he was going to pee on it.
Waited the whole time and it did.
And it did. I read the whole thing, a very good adaptation because they
Mhm.
really stuck to it very closely.
Yeah.
And we really had fun with
Oh,
it.
that's great.
But there was just, every so often, and there's a lot of things that when you have it in a book, you can't quite equally get it into the TV show.
Yeah.
And as producers and as screenwriters, you have to pick and choose what you can put in, and that just didn't make the cut.
Right.
But everything else was amazing, and it's definitely in my good category. It was a good adaptation from the manga to the anime, and I would recommend it for anybody. It's just so much. It's gory. Don't let little kids do it. But it's just so much fun. And here at Paradise, I don't know when this is going to air, but we have June 14th. We're going to be doing an anime mania where we have everything Demon Slayer. We're going to make candy sushi.
Oh, that's so cool.
And we're going to have the little Demon Slayer mangas. And every teen I've talked to about this program is like, Demon Slayer? Demon Slayer?
Yeah.
And I said, yes, Demon Slayer, come join, have fun. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's just, it's a good one.
I like it.
Yeah.
Okay, so the first one I'm going to talk about is 1984.
Oh, everybody knows that one.
Yeah. See, for me, with this particular one, it's because of the accuracy of the adaptation. Of course, people know the book. The book is a classic. It's, heartbreaking ending. I just love the book so much. The director of the movie was Michael Radford. It was actually released in the year of 1984.
That is a trippy fact.
Yeah.
I did not know. That's
delightful.
Isn't
Isn't that cool? And it's widely considered the most faithful one of the most faithful movie adaptations of a literary offering that's been produced. John Hurt starred in it. Richard Burton was also in it. It was the last film he ever did. And it was just, for me, and the Eurythmics did the score, which amazing.
Yeah.
What I loved about it was that it really captured the bleakness of the novel, which you think, oh, well, that, a little color correction and a little whatever, that shouldn't necessarily be that difficult. But it's amazing how even, like, you look at other dystopian stories like Brazil or whatever, there's a tendency to use humor to alleviate the oppressive atmosphere, especially for cinema, because movie studios are notoriously allergic to anything being sort of dourly toned. They always want a little buoyancy in their offerings because they're afraid it's going to turn an audience off. And 1984 is relentless in the oppressive atmosphere. It really makes you feel how this dystopian alternative history, this this place and time that Orwell created in his literary work, never lets you breathe. It never lets off. You never have a moment to yourself. There is never a time or a place where that valve is released and you get to be yourself. And that's the thing that I feel makes it such a close adaptation, is that tone. Because too many others, they'll have a little bit of a light moment, they'll have a little bit of a comedy thing, they'll have a little bit, try to show the humanity of the characters or whatever. And these are people, everyone is on the brink of entirely losing their humanity because of the circumstances. This is the system has won, and the authoritarianism is strong, and that's all there is. And which comes to the end of the book, when, spoiler alert, when the main character says,
it's a classic, you can't spoil it.
I mean, with his ultimate final line, he loved Big Brother. When that person is broken, you see it coming throughout the whole thing. There's never a moment where you think he might get away, where you think it might end differently. It's a freight train, and you see that accident coming the whole time, and there's nothing you can do. And I appreciate the strength of a director that holds to that vision and doesn't cave to, a little premiere screening that might be like, oh, it's so depressing.
Yeah.
you know, to the director and the producer and whatever
They stayed truthful
the
to
team, the pre-production and post-production team that stuck to that. And so that's why I feel like that's just one of the best adaptations.
That's lovely. Another really good one that I liked how they did was the Bridgerton series. So the Bridgerton series is a romance, a Regency romance written by Julia Quinn. You can find them in almost every branch of our library. If the branch that you're at doesn't have it, we can always send it down. And it starts with the Duke and I. And there's about 8 books, give or take. And each book follows a different sibling of the Bridgertons, this very large family. And the first book has Daphne is the female and Simon is the male main character, and it's a love story and blah 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 blah. Anyway, the books are all they follow that particular formula that many romance novels do. And a vast majority of the main characters, if not all of them, please correct me if I'm wrong and you've read this, because I've read a giant piece of it. The vast
I'm
majority,
like, no.
the vast majority of them are white.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when Bridgerton got a hold of it,
well, because it's a period piece,
it
takes place in a particular period.
Yes,
so
yes, and it's the family. The Bridgertons are actually of the ton, which is the high class. And back then, you wouldn't find anybody that's not white in that particular class of people. And the Bridgertons, the TV show, which is on Netflix, I completely recommend it. Sandra Rhimes. Shoot. Anyway, she took it and she's like, nah, let's put some spice on this. And so you've got all these very, very main characters that are not white. The Queen Charlotte wasn't a main character in the books, and she's delightful. And Lady Danbury was an old white woman in the books, and she's not in the TV show, and it's beautiful. And then the most recent seasons had characters that turned out to be LGBTQ+. And you didn't have that in the book. The book is very mainstream. It follows the Regency romance formula of all the little pocketbook romances. And it's a fun ride. Don't get me wrong. It's a very, very fun ride. And I would recommend it to anybody that likes romance. But oh my, the show just, it opened a whole new world of drama and diversity. And they followed the basic structure of the book. So you don't have anything that's like, wait a minute, that's not how that goes. You have the basic foundations in it, but there's just so much extra that makes it so delicious that it's lovely, but it's not for kids. There's nudity. Please don't let your children watch it. But it was so wonderful how they did that. And they changed everything in all the best ways. Yeah. And I just absolutely loved it.
See, and I love when they treat historical fiction that way, because, I mean, let's be honest, it's history. It's fiction. Introduce diversity into the cast. This is an historical treatise. It is something that absolutely is a perfect opportunity to mix that cast up and to bring a little more life to it, and also create a little bit more relatability, making it a little more modern, having it reflect our own society in a way that it couldn't if it was just, all whitewashed. I love that. That's just such a great opportunity for, a production to take that angle. I love that.
I like it a lot better because how Disney's been doing the remakes of all their old cartoons. And the ones that I absolutely love are the ones that changed something. Like the Mulan one. They changed it just a smidgen so that it was a brand new adventure for me. It wasn't like all the same stuff. And that's my problem with a lot of them, is that it's just kind of all the same stuff. I'm like, I've been here. I've done this. I know this story. I know how it's, I know all the spoilers, and there's no reason for me to go and pay money and go to the theater to see something that I'm like, I already kind of know there's nothing new.
Oh yeah, I hate redos. I hate redos. It's like, let's not.
Yeah.
We have DVDs. We have streaming. We could just put the old one in.
Right?
We could just watch the other one.
We could. And to paraphrase Stephen King in his book On Writing, and I'm paraphrasing, this is an exact quote, I'm old. I don't have the time to waste on bad stuff, you know?
I mean, fair.
You know, I think his exact quote was like, I'm 50 years old. I don't have the time to waste on bad writing. But I mean,
it applies.
Right? You know, I don't want to waste my time watching the exact same thing.
Oh, no.
And I love it when they take a book and it's not the exact same thing. Like you have certain things that are happening and you have the foundations and you have the keystones that you need to reach. But that extra, the diverse cast, that extra spiciness to it, that extra, you know,
I love that too. I always love when you can see the director.
Yes.
I know you're not supposed to, but I like
when the director like that.
Well, no, I mean when your director has a strong point of view.
Oh yeah, even better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I also do like when directors do cameos, but I mean
like Tarantino's, you can always see him.
Or like Stanley Kubrick always has a strong point of view. Brian De Palma, and I know I'm mentioning old people. I'm old. That's it's one of the symptoms
of getting old.
Is that you reference old things?
Right.
That's your point of reference.
Not old, retro.
Oh, there we go. Look at you. You just almost made me cool. Thanks for trying.
Sorry.
That's perfectly fine. No, that's good though. But no, I love that point. That's an excellent point. My next one is also TV, and it's Salem's Lot.
Oh yes, continue.
No, Toby Hooper did the direction. It was released in 1979. I am always going to be coming out with the little bit. So the bit. Salem's Lot was actually published 4 years earlier in 1975. So pretty fresh adaptation of a popular novel. But what I love is the era of the TV movie is something that cannot be explained. Okay, so the special made-for-TV movies were just so wonderful. This was a miniseries, so you had several episodes, but broadcast weekly over a short period of time, not like a 22-episode series. It was probably 4 or 5 episodes. It was 2 parts. So it was 2 parts. And this was also during an era when made-for-TV movies focused a lot on horror. So there's a lot of good horror that you can watch from this period was actually originally made for television. It wasn't like made for the screen, edited down and put on TV. It just was standalone television production. Salem's Lot is so scary and was scary at the time. It's still scary now. There are several scary moments. And yet it's not about gore. It's not about blood. It is good old-fashioned absolute terror. And it is just something that I enjoy watching so much. I actually hadn't watched it since it practically came out.
Right.
Because I was a horror watching kid. So being it's and so I watched it sometime again in the last year, and I was so surprised. I hadn't remembered it being as bad as it is. And bad meaning good, meaning as scary, as challenging to the status quo as it actually is. You think, oh, it was on TV. It couldn't have been that bad. Oh, it was on. There's that scene where the kid's friend is floating outside the window and he's like, let me in, let's go. And it is horrifying.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you're looking for something that's a little scary, spooky, but not gory, and I mean, it is Toby Hooper. Toby Hooper was the expert at that. Texas Chainsaw Massacre that he also directed. Well, is one of the most.
That gave me nightmares, man.
Well, here's the thing: it's one of the most terrifying films. There's not a drop of blood in the entire movie.
Facts.
And he knows how to sow the seeds of terror, and so he really, what an absolutely pinnacle piece of work for someone to do. And so I always recommend. So that's one of my favorite.
That's delightful.
Adaptations.
Stephen King adaptations no matter what, whether they stick to the story, bit by bit, or
Yeah.
whether they take liberties along the way, they are always terrifying.
Yeah. When you think about it, I
Always.
mean, so many, I mean, he's a prolific author.
He is.
So there's a ton of books. So
Mhm.
you hope a lot of his books have been made into movies because there
Mhm.
are so bloody many.
There
There'd be
are.
something wrong if there hadn't been.
Right.
But they are always a good time. There's always something.
They're always
in
a
them.
terrifying time.
Yeah.
Very, very much so.
And as much as he writes
Uh-huh.
those tomes,
Yeah.
doing it in a miniseries format as opposed to just either a 2.5 hour movie, which good God Almighty, sitting in one place for 2.5 hours is just rough. But doing it in those sort of installments
The
helps
Stand.
you really get The Stand,
Mhm.
It, the
Mhm.
original It with Tim Curry.
Oh, yeah.
You really get a fuller. You don't get the full story, but you get a fuller the fuller effect of the story than you do if you're sitting there and it's just.
See, I like the original with Tim Curry just because I'm a Tim Curry fan.
Oh, same.
And I love him. So when he comes up as It, I can't be scared because I'm like, it's Tim Curry,
Well, you've heard the stories about that on the set.
No.
That
Ooh, do tell.
Well, he terrified the crew.
Oh my.
No,
he got into it.
The performance, which very often they say if a performance on a set goes well, like, oh, they were really laughing and oh, they were really, sometimes that means it doesn't translate so well onto the screen.
Right.
But when he's kind of an exception to that rule, his performance was so frightening that like the camera people, they had to look down the barrel because a lot of his more terrifying scenes, he's breaking the fourth wall completely. And they were absolutely horrified. He would get under their skin as he was doing the, stuff. And it didn't have to be with just the fang makeup, the special effects makeup, even just as the clown. He was able to creep them out pretty good. I happen to like the design of his clown better than the more recent films, just because I feel like there's a thing about telegraphing your intentions. And I really hate when things are telegraphed. And I feel like the clown in the modern telling of it telegraphs that he's a bit evil.
Yeah.
He's got a bit of an angry face.
Yeah.
He's a little sinister looking. The thing about Tim Curry's clown is you could see that a small child would be absolutely drawn in by that clown. You could see
That's a good point.
how a child would perfectly innocently look at this particular person and think, oh, look, it's a party clown and it's fun and I'm going to go over there. I'm perfectly safe.
And there's nothing wrong with the fact that he's deep in the sewer.
Right. And I understand that probably part of the reason why the clown is sinister is because now that we understand that the Stephen King universe is this entire universe that's linked together and it's horror, and it does a much better job in the new one of talking about how the town is more or less cursed.
Yeah.
That Derry is under the spell, that it is like everyone in the town.
Yeah.
So it leads with that, as if we know everyone has read the books, so we're going to tell it from that perspective. I like the fact that the old It was like, no, this is just a random run-of-the-mill little town, and everybody is people. These are people you know and you've met, and this is, just a clown, and this is, and so all of that evil is subsumed in the banal. I prefer that version of storytelling than like,
delightful.
Oh, we all know that this is evil and scary, so let's watch it be evil. See, to me, then I'm like, where am I supposed to get scared? Where's for the audience? Am I supposed to just go, see, you knew that was going to happen? Of course you knew it was going to happen. It's all over the screen that it was going to happen.
Yeah.
So I'm just that kind of storytelling of we're all in on the joke.
See,
I will leave it.
I love it because he does talk, Stephen King does talk on his on writing book. He talks about writing it.
Yeah.
And he talks about the reaction of professional clowns will come up to him and be like, good sir, you
Oh,
are
yeah.
making my job very hard.
Oh yeah.
And he
Like
would be
Peter
like,
Benchley with Sharks and Jaws, and
You
then they
know?
were hunted almost into extinction.
yes,
Because people were like, the sharks are bad. It's the same-
Right?
Can you imagine the terror of clowns that
right?
came up after
And
that?
they went up
Sure.
to, they would go up to Stephen and they would be like, or Mr. King or whatever, and they would be like, this
Stevie.
is what, you know, why clowns, man? Why would you do this to us? And he's like, dude, I'm so sorry, but if you ask any kid, the scariest thing, the majority of them are gonna say a clown. So I'm sorry,
Mhm.
man, but
Yeah. Yeah.
it just, that's the way the tiddlywinks fell.
Yeah.
You know?
Mhm.
But yeah, so good. I would recommend, if you have the opportunity, get on Writing by Stephen King on audiobook. It's on
Yeah.
Libby. It gives you a whole new side to his personality, and he's good for a laugh, oddly
And
enough.
you know what? I think if you're a reader,
Mhm.
understanding the writing process is really
Yes,
helpful.
it
I think
is.
to sort of understand how the sausage is made.
Nobody
know?
wants to know how the sausage is made.
Oh, everyone wants to know how the sausage is
Oh, and
made.
side note, you can get all these books from our library.
Oh yeah,
collection.
I mean,
Yeah.
there's
Mhm.
everything at one way or another. And if you're interested in one of these items and we don't have it, or you have another, you've seen a
Mhm.
movie and you want to read the book that it was adapted from, and we don't have it in our collection,
Mhm.
you could do what's called a purchase suggestion. Just go into your account or
Yes,
come to our
please.
Circ desk. We're happy to
Mhm.
help you, but you could do it yourself from your
Yeah.
library account online. Just put a purchase suggestion in. There's certain information that's required. You'll figure it out when you get to the form, and put that in. And we're happy to get as many. We can't necessarily get everything. Collection development
But, you know,
department has to
mhm.
sort of review everything. But there are ways, and we do our best to get everything
Well,
we possibly can.
It's like the lotto. You're never
And
going
the
to
more
win.
people,
You're never going to win if you don't play. We're never going to know what you want if you don't tell us.
and the more people that request something, the more likely
Mhm.
we are to get it. So put
Yeah.
your requests in. You never know. Maybe something someone else wants to read too.
I think that was a very good list we had for good.
Definitely. So shall we move on to the bad?
The bad.
Dun, dun.
So I read a lot of YA. I like YA. It's my comfy, because I like I said, I read to relax. I read to escape. And I loved Cassandra Clare's Shadowhunter series, which is they've tried a couple of times to adapt this.
That always cracks me up when they're like, "We can do this," and then they're like, "Oh, we're going to we didn't get to do it. Wait, there's another chance. We're going to have another chance. Here's a director. What? Oh,
Yeah, the first installment is City of Bones, and it's like an urban fantasy teen thing where you have Nephilim, which is half angel, half people, like this race of people,
Yep.
and they go around killing what they call the downworlders, which are vampires and werewolves and all this other stuff, and mainly demons. They mainly have to hunt demons. It's a fun little read. Anyway, they turned it into a movie, and I remember my sister and I, because we love the series, and we did that. My sister and I do this thing where we pick one book and we both read it, and then we talk. We have our little book
That's so
club.
awesome.
And it's really fun, because she'll call me, in the middle of the night. Can you believe this? And I'll be like,
Have you gotten to page 64 yet?
I don't want to tell you any spoilers, but I really need to yell about this. And it's a lot of fun. But we went to the movie because we read the book and we were super excited, and we sat there, and I could feel the moment where we're both like, what? They got the casting wrong. They changed the story. The acting was awful. I mean, everything was so bad that we left that theater going, what? How? What? It was so bad, because like we said earlier, it doesn't have to be a page by page verbatim.
No.
But there is still a foundation that you need to follow, and
there are expectations.
Yes, for the book readers, and even if I hadn't have read the book before I saw the movie, there were certain things where I'm just like, huh? Wait, what?
Well, that's when it's not just a bad adaptation, but just bad storytelling.
Yeah, the acting was really icky, and then we get there, and
the movie equivalent of this could have been an email.
Right, exactly. And the one of the villainous character, he is this middle-aged man that's he has white hair in the books, and he's a father to a teenager. And they casted a guy in his early 20s. And I'm just like,
that doesn't track. That's weird.
With brown hair. And I'm just like, he looks like he looks like he just graduated high school and he's supposed to be this middle-aged man who's a father to teenagers.
Mhm.
And I'm just like,
Yeah.
this could have been an email.
This
Come
could have
on
been an
now.
email.
Yeah, we didn't enjoy it at all. We didn't like it in the least bit.
No,
It was just
that's
bad.
never good.
Mhm.
That's never good. My first one is going to be Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, circa 2005.
Sorry.
Yes.
You're going to have to do that one again. I hated that one. Go ahead.
No, we're leaving that in entirely. Because this book, I love this book.
Mhm.
This book is so good. It was a gateway to Terry Pratchett for me, which as it should be. I have always been a Python fan. I have always
Mhm.
been, and if you have those sensibilities, you gotta love Douglas Adams. And there was an excellent TV series
Mhm.
done in Britain on the book. Fantastic, so fun, doesn't miss a beat, stays right with the characters and the storyline and everything. And I love the people in this film. I love Stephen Fry so much.
That was so cute.
And Martin Freeman, like since The British Office, I love Martin Freeman. Which the British Office, if you like the American Office, I don't know if you'll love the British Office, but the British Office is just so good. It's so good. I can't even watch the American one. I'm like, no.
Well, you know what? You prefer Great Britain on a lot of things.
Well, I do. But this is just like, it's the original lampoon of reality TV. So it's just chef's kiss. So good. This movie was terrible.
It really was.
This movie was terrible. It like doesn't really touch on anything. And Martin Freeman is just lost.
He is.
And doesn't really bring much to the table.
He doesn't.
And it's just awful.
You look so dejected.
I was so sad. I mean, I don't even know how to describe it because it was like when a movie is a waste of time, that's probably like, you're never going to get that time back.
No. You want to go ask for a refund, huh?
Yeah. And it's just, especially something you love so much and with people, and you're like, this is going to be amazing. And then it's just, you're like watching the movie and waiting for it to get good, and it never does.
Yeah, you're the Cartman meme.
Yeah.
I just read a whole book.
I just read a whole book. But you obviously also have things to say about it. You obviously also hated this movie as well.
So bad.
Yeah.
I saw it so long ago because it came out. Oh my gosh, when was that movie
It came out in
released?
2005.
2005, okay. Oh my gosh, 20 years ago.
Douglas Adams wrote early versions of the screenplay before his death. He was working on it.
It was not related. It's almost like they were two separate entities.
No.
There was so much difference.
Yeah. It's absolutely
awful.
awful.
When you change something that much from the book to the movie, okay, because like I said before, it's okay to take liberties. It's perfectly okay. In fact, I love it when they take liberties.
Absolutely. It brings a lot to the table.
But when you just
not like that,
and it's so many, it's like there's nothing resembling the original anything. You're just like, and then it just turns out to be bad.
And it's just dull.
Make it at least good.
Which is probably the worst thing you could possibly say.
Right?
It was dull.
You're never going to get that time back.
And
another really bad one that I didn't like was Rick Riordan. He writes the Percy Jackson series. If you've got kids, you know him. He's really popular.
If you got kids,
you know him. He has the Percy Jackson series, and he's got another one that's like a spinoff, and then he's got one that's Egyptian, and he's got one that's Norse themed. And he's a great author, and he's a great person. And he wrote Percy Jackson. The first one in there is The Lightning Thief. And I've read it. It's so much fun. And well, what they did, because it's so much fun and because it's really popular, is they turned it into a movie. And It was awful. And it's not even because, okay, so I read it and I had certain expectations going in. And we talked about this earlier in the podcast, is that you're allowed to take certain liberties with these particular things, turning a work of writing into a movie. And
there's
like
a lot of poetic license that goes into adaptation.
And a lot of them, like the Bridgertons, like what I said earlier, a lot of changes make it much better.
Yeah.
These changes did not. And it just made it so bad to where I'm just like, is it just me? Is it just,
well, no. And I haven't read the book or seen the film, but this is what I've heard, like doing research about different things, and I haven't heard anybody say anything really good about it. It was on a lot of worst lists.
It's terrible. And then the second one looked at the first one and said, hold my beer. And they went out, and it killed me, because one of the characters, Annabelle, I think is her name, she's the female, because there's two males and a female in this little group that they've got. And in the first movie, she was a brunette and she looked very natural. But in the book, she's blonde, but that wasn't my problem. I don't care about the lady's hair color. In the second movie, you can see them transitioning her into the blonde. And I'm just like, but why? But why? You didn't do it for the first one. Why are you trying for the second one?
That's random.
It's right. It was just like, but why? I couldn't see it. And then it was just so bad. And if you ever look at the author's tweets and things like that, and he's talking about these movies, he's like, please don't see these movies. They're so bad. I don't know. No one consulted me in anything, and they're just really bad. However, Disney Plus recently released, within the last couple of years or so, a series of Percy Jackson, and it's television. It's a list with episodes. That one's good. Please go do that one. Yeah, that one they actually got right. And if you ever talk to someone, you're like, oh, I watched Percy Jackson, they'll be like, which one? The good one. Okay.
Yeah. And there's consensus as to what that actually means.
And because these kids in this thing, they're middle school. And then the movies, they look like they're about ready to graduate high school and go get a job.
That has been talked about in movies forever, where it's like you have high school students and they look like they're 35. That's so common.
Right? Yeah, and I know. And it always surprised me when I watched Grease as a kid, because they're supposed to be high school kids. And these actors are like 30 years old. And I'm like, but it was they did it. The movies were the book was great. Read the book. It's wonderful. Your kids probably have already read it. It's really great. The first two movies were awful. Just pretend they don't exist, and then you can watch the series, and then you're like, yay.
Nice. Love it.
Do you have another bad?
So my last bad is the Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula. Okay, so Dracula has had a million lives.
Oh gosh, yes.
In cinema.
He's basically Batman.
There's a billion. There's a billion Draculas. What I dislike in particular about this one is that it definitely harps on the whole romance aspect. That actually doesn't exist at all within the book.
But he's Dracula. He's a very sexy man.
But see, here's the thing, though. So in the book, Dracula doesn't have a romance with Mina. You don't really know why he goes after her. You don't it's not even that you don't know why he goes after her. You just don't know what's happening. Because the entire story is told through a series of letters, diary entries. So it's not someone telling the narrative of a story of X happened and then Y followed and then, Z. You're not getting a narrative. You're getting the perspective of the people that the story is about. So you're not hearing, Mina's not writing a letter saying, oh, and then I met this foreign guy and he was really hot. It's her feelings, and you're reading the things written by her fiance going, I don't understand what's wrong with her. And she's collapsing and she has this illness and she can't wake up. And we found marks on her neck. We don't know. There is no, oh, there's this hot romance going on. That was Stoker's play.
Mm-hmm.
He had to write, when they decided to make an adaptation for the stage of his book, he had to take what the story was about, which I have my own opinions about this. I don't know necessarily how academics also feel about this, but essentially, I feel as an Irish author, what you have in Dracula is you have an Irish satire of Victorian life.
That's fair.
Naturalism was an emerging sort of philosophy. It was conflicting with the Victorian age, like naturalists, Shelley and a lot of the poets of the time were naturalists. It was considered, that's where you have the sort of free love. They were like proto-hippies, right? And the rest of the Victorians were all buttoned up. And I feel like Stoker saw this conflict within the artistic community and decided to write a piece about people fighting their animal natures. And that's really what Dracula is about. But the thing is, it's a satire. Dracula is a comedy. There are multiple comedy moments within that book that let you know clearly this is a comedy. Perhaps my favorite is the one where they get to Dracula's tomb and all the men are going there and they're gonna save Mina because she's sick. They don't know why, but Van Helsing and her fiance, and they're all there, her dad, whomever, they're all there, and they're outside the tomb, and they're like, okay, we're here. Dr. Van Helsing, I give you the honor of going first into the tomb and placing the stake in it. And Dr. Van Helsing goes, no, I believe as your fiance is one, you should have the first. And they're fighting over who's going to go in the tomb. Meanwhile, you start reading Mina's, he's outside her window trying to get in. The men are so terrified to go in that they're trying to get the other guy to go first, using these Victorian tropes of politeness to validate and justify their cowardice. And she's there by herself and winds up having to fend him off completely by herself, using her own resources and guile. While the men who are being all brave are trying to figure out how to get out of killing this monster.
Yeah.
Now that is satire written by a man who was raised by a single mom.
Oh, it is, isn't it? Oh my gosh.
And that's just one. So when I see something like Coppola's Dracula, dripping in finery, beautiful romance story, tracking shots where they're gliding across a dance floor and they're so in love they're levitating. I'm like, that ain't the book that I read. This is his vision of the play that Stoker wrote to adapt it to create a visual piece for an audience that where Mina fighting her animal instincts had to be made live. You couldn't just be in her head with letters. It's on stage. So what do? We'll create a romance that validates, that gives justification for him to be knocking on her window at the middle of the night. Hey, girly girl, let me in. If there's love, that's why that's happening.
That makes it all better.
Well, and that's what makes sense. So it's like, okay, that's what we'll do. We'll turn it into a romance. And that was the story that was told. And that's the story. It's the play that keeps getting adapted into these screenplays. And this one is the most leaning into that romance trope that never existed, that barely existed within Stoker's lexicon. And it cracks me up. Because actually, I can't remember the name. All of that comes from another Bram Stoker book that he wrote, which was about the reincarnation of a woman from Egypt. It's more like The Mummy, the other story.
The moment you say Egypt, it's like Mummy,
Yeah, and that's where that whole love story thing comes from, and the reincarnation storyline. It's from another book that Bram Stoker wrote. It's not from Dracula, so it's sort of this hybrid where he threw them together for the play. And so this is what you have. It's a beautiful film, yes. It's a lovely watch. Is it an adaptation of Bram Stoker's Dracula?
No.
Absolutely not. And if you want a performance that is close to Bram Stoker's Dracula, you have to look at the most literate actor that has ever been anywhere in any media and watch Christopher Lee's Dracula. His Dracula is the closest to what you find in the book, because his Dracula is terrifying, is a monster, and is really a wild animal in human form. So you want to see what Dracula would be like if he was like, watch a Christopher Lee movie. But if you want to watch Gary Oldman give a really kind of a good performance with a cool accent.
He's not a bad guy. He's fun to watch.
I love Gary Oldman. I love him. His performances are so good. He's such a brilliant actor.
He's a lot of fun.
But if it is not an adaptation of Dracula.
Yeah. No.
So that's why it's in my bad movies, because it's a good movie, bad adaptation.
Are we ready to go to
Now, the final part, we're going to talk about the ugly.
the ugly? Okay, so these are adaptations that we thought were worse than bad.
Yeah, for any number of reasons.
Number of reasons. So mine, I think I've only got one, because for the most part, it's a fun time to read a book and go watch a movie, and unless it's But mine was Twilight. The whole series.
Sparkly vampires.
Okay, so I read the books, and I actually had a lot of fun with the books. And we had our children's librarian Kai on a past podcast talk about how they're what did they call them? Low readability, or no, high readability,
low vocabulary.
Low vocabulary. Yeah, high lows. There it is.
Yeah.
And they're a lot. It's a fun ride. And I fell in love with the Cullens. I thought Bella was amazing. In the books are told first person. And so you're in Bella's head for all of these books. They're
See,
all
you already lose me there with the books with first person. I can't. It was hard with Dracula, because a lot of it is like, and then I went, and I.
Oh, I had so much fun. I did, and it was all first person, and you're in there. So not only do you hear the things that are going on, but you hear, and she's very introverted in the books. She's not very outgoing. She doesn't really talk out loud a lot, but she has this fun, dry sense of humor that's in her head. And there she's cracking jokes, and I'm giggling as I'm reading, and it's a lot of fun. And then it's hard to take that onto the screen. So when it gets onto the screen and I'm watching, and the main character, Kristen Stewart, she's on there, and she just, and I'm just like, what? Why aren't you funny? Do something funny, because she was funny in the books, but it was her dialogue inside her head when she's talking about Edward and she's doing all this fun stuff. And I'm just like, why are you this way? I can't. And she was so hard to watch. And this is awful. And there's going to be a lot of people, library employees included, that are coming after me for this one. But it was so hard to watch this movie. And then you get to Ryan Paddington. Robert Pattinson. Robert, thank you. Yeah.
You were very close.
I was so close. You get to him, and they've got the white makeup on him, which I guess the vampires are pale because they're vampires, but it's just so obviously white makeup. And then you've got he's wearing sunglasses because he's trying to be cool. And then you've got the dry dialogue when they're standing in the forest, and she did all that research, and he's behind her, stalking her. She's like, I know what you are. And he says, say it out loud. And I'm just like, ah!
That dialogue, man. Some of it is
the theater's just looking at me, and I'm like, this is so stupid. How are you guys? Like, okay, are you okay? Are you good? Okay, because this is dumb. It was just, and you can cut that out later. That's fine. I've lost it. This is why it's in my ugly thing. It makes me ugly to talk about it. I just can't. It was so bad, Tracy.
I know.
I wanted to go get my money back, but I'm too nice of a person. It was just, and then the second one came out, and I'm like, okay, this will be better. And I go to
You're
the
so
second.
optimistic, January.
I had my, I was just, I'm ready to go. I got my popcorn. It's gonna be great. And it was so bad. And I'm just like, I'm leaving and I'm scolding myself. I'm like, well, what did you expect? The first one was bad too. Well, yeah, but I thought maybe the second one would be a little better because they
had a chance, they had some time. Well, I think that's definitely a case. Now, I'm not necessarily a fan of Kristen Stewart. However, I think it's hard to differentiate the actor from the character. We say that in a lot of contexts when we're talking about cinema, but I think in that case, it's like the character was written so poorly.
That's fair.
What really did she have to do? Pretty much the character shows up and fogs a mirror until the character can't fog the mirror because she's a vampire now.
Yeah.
It's like, that it's hard to go and look at it because I think she's taken a lot of criticism for that performance. But it's like, really, what substance did they give that character? There's none.
Yeah, that's fair.
So it's like, but I love your point about the fact that you have this book that's so super engaging because it's all about the inner life of this particular character. And then when they adapt it to film, they completely excise the inner life of the character who was the main draw of the whole thing to begin with. And you just sort of cut her out almost.
It's completely
sad.
The books are completely different from the movies, not in the fact that certain things don't happen in one or the other. And they do. There are certain things, it hits all the main parts of the plot and the story and everything for the most part, but it's just, and the thing is, at the very end, spoiler, at the very end, they have the bad vampires facing the good vampires, and they're all ready. Now, this is actually, I did appreciate this one. They're all ready to fight each other, and then they just kind of talk at each other, and then, spoiler, and then each side, yeah, I know, right? Beep, 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 beep. And then each side kind of says, well, okay, we're going to be watching you. Well, okay, we're going to be watching you. And they all turn and go their separate ways. And you're just like, I just finished this whole book. And I'm like, well, okay, the good parts are going to come in any minute now. And maybe the really good stuff is at the end. And nothing happened. That's how you feel at the end of this battle. So in the movie, they had a battle. There was this battle where they're all fighting each other and everyone's like, boom, boom, and heads are flying off and fur is flying because the werewolves are in it.
Right.
And they're just like, bop, 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 bop. And you're like, oh my gosh, this didn't happen in the book. This is so exciting. Oh my gosh. And then it pans out and it was all in one of the characters' heads. And you're like, I just read an entire book. It's all fun. And I just, it made me so angry.
I'm getting that. I'm really getting that.
But it's my ugly pile. I have so many raw feelings towards
this is that screaming in the pillow.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is totally it.
I'm like, oh, good. They changed it. So this one's better. It'll be better than the book. It was all in your head. Oh, okay. I'm going to go back over here now. Thanks so much. You keep doing you. Thanks. Bye.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
That's a good one. Now, my ugly, I have a few that I was looking at because the thing for me that would qualify something as ugly is how much of a mess it was to go from the book to the actual production, right? And I have a couple candidates for that. I think really the best one. Now, one of those is Richard Matheson's I Am Legend. I'm going to kind of go over the titles. Now, this book is great. I really love, in terms of adaptations, because this has sort of a good, a bad, and an ugly. In that, the good adaptation is The Last Man on Earth, which is actually the closest to the novel. Stars Vincent Price. It's from 1964.
Oh, Vincent Price.
And it deals with the ending, which is very much about who has a right to exist, who has a right to life on this planet. Yeah, it's like, spoiler. So he's spoiler. So he's fighting this sort of vampire horde that
Mhm.
has cropped up on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
And he's the last, like a doctor, and his family's been taken over by this illness and everything. And he's going out rogue in the middle of the night and killing these creatures
Mm-hmm.
until one comes, and it's this person. He thinks the person is normal like him.
Mm-hmm.
And it turns out that she's using an antidote for the illness, and she's there to assassinate him because he's murdering her people.
Ah.
And he's a homicidal maniac.
Uh-huh.
And he's murdering these people who are living their lives. How dare he?
Who has
So
the right to
it's
exist.
who's the monster.
Yeah.
Great story.
Uh-huh.
Well, then we get to Omega Man, who's very clear about who the monster is. And now this is bad because I actually like this movie. The Omega Man is a really good movie.
All right.
Charlton Heston gives a great performance as a
Uh-huh.
total narcissist doctor who's now like isolated himself, and he's trying as much as possible to continue to live his civilized life.
Okay.
And he's trying to like spends most of his time avoiding the vampires, and they're trying to get him.
Mm-hmm.
And then he eventually finds a group of people who also haven't been infected, and they drive off into the sunset.
Mm-hmm.
Bad.
Yeah.
But then there's the Will Smith version, and I think it's just bad, like bad. So this is the ugly one for me because it's literally just a poorly made film. It doesn't take into account any of the original story. Tries to do the adaptation, but it winds up just being sappy dialogue and crappy, just unwatchable. So does that really do the film justice? So
I didn't read the book. I hated the movie.
yeah.
I hated it so much.
Yeah.
I just
No, the Vincent Price one, when you get to the end there and you realize it really rang
Mhm.
very loudly about
It's delightful.
who has rights and where those rights come from,
right.
and whose lives have value. What gives a life value?
That's interesting.
Yeah, it's this whole allegory. And the other movies just sort of ignore the allegory and turn it into an adventure story.
It turned it into a zombie movie.
Yeah.
That's what it turned it into.
Yeah.
It was basically The Walking Dead, you know, just with Will Smith as the star.
Yeah.
And it was bad, Tracy.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
so bad.
Yeah. I Am Legend with Will Smith is really sort of a remake of the Omega Man,
Mhm.
not of the book.
Yeah.
And not of The Last Man on Earth either.
Mhm.
So you have this movie with a completely different title. That's the best adaptation of the book that it's drawn from.
Mhm.
It's not completely the same thing, but it's an excellent movie. And it's not the corny sort of Vincent Price. It's when he was actually in his serious era of making horror films, and it's a really good watch.
Whew. That was a roller coaster of feelings, flashbacks, and fictional betrayals.
Thanks for joining us. If you're still mourning your favorite book's movie adaptation, just know you're not alone. And if you've got a favorite or least favorite adaptation, share it in the comments.
I want to know. We'd love to hear what adaptations you loved, loathed entirely, or are still emotionally recovering from. Tag us on social or stop by your local branch and spill the popcorn.
Until next time, keep reading and double check that trailer before you commit. Yay! Bye, everybody.
Bye.